Okay, so I called it The Making of an AI App, A Finger Painter's Journey. I'll explain to you about the whole finger painter, but I'm the finger painter. Just a quick review of what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you a story. And I'm actually going to tell you two stories because there's two stories happening at the same time. One story is about a guy like me trying to develop his very first AI application. And the other story is about AI working with a guy like me to make that possible. So we're going to cover just a few things. We're going to cover about how AI actually lowered the barrier, made it possible for me to develop an LLM-based application. How I worked, I'll tell you about what my process was for working with AI to make this possible. And I'll give you a demo of what we built. I say we, it's me and AI. We built this together. The reason it matters is because I think that innovation sometimes is in a person's heart, and they can't necessarily make it come true. And I think that one of the things, the wonderful things that AI is doing is actually unlocking the ability for anybody to innovate in technology. So I think to understand a little bit about what I did, it may be important to understand a little bit about me. So my background, even though I am a technologist, I've been working in tech for a long time, over 30 years. But my background is actually in networking and telecommunications. I grew up as a Unix, Linux guy who became a network guy. I started writing tools, so I do have a bit of a programming background, but just a tools, sysadmin, lazy sysadmin type of tool work. Eventually that turned into a career in the software business where I developed resource adapters, prototypes for network devices talking to systems. And then I sold more and more advanced types of software, ended up in the network modeling, network simulation, network automation business. And so for the last 15 years or so, I've primarily been a technical seller. My job has been to communicate with various companies about their challenges and then try to get them to buy a piece of software by integrating it and showing them how it works and that kind of stuff. So software is not foreign to me, but my last gig was as CTO at Cisco, where I was mostly doing this kind of stuff, standing up and delivering presentations and start in front of large audiences of people. I didn't really write a lot of code for the last several years. I've always been interested in AI, but it was sci-fi for me. So when this stuff started happening, and I started seeing videos coming through my feed about people just saying import OpenAI and then typing a few lines of Python and getting it to talk to them, I thought, what, that seems doable. Like I think I could try that. I just needed to know I'm a learn by doing kind of person, and so I needed something to do. So I did do a lot of studying and a lot of learning. But I really wanted to get my hands dirty. I needed a good idea, and I went to actually Mark's meetup, and that's where I met Suzanne. And actually, in a very weird coincidence, Suzanne was talking to Arka. And I overheard her talking to Arka about this idea that she had, and this was the idea. She said, what if there was an AI tool that some unsophisticated user could use to try to generate promotional videos automatically, the same way that they would necessarily do with a marketing person and maybe a production crew and whatever over the course of a few weeks. Maybe AI could help them do that in a few minutes. And Arca was nodding very politely, and they were talking about the possibilities. And I was kind of sitting there because I think in my second or third meetup, I was really new to the AI scene, and I thought, that actually sounds bite-sized. That sounds like something I could probably try. So I waited till the whole thing was over, and then I emailed Suzanne on the back end. I said, Suzanne, I think I want to try to do this. Are you willing to work with a newbie like me to make this happen? And she said yes. So that's what we did. So of course the next step was, oh shit, she said yes. How am I going to do this? I had no idea where to start. I'm not a software engineer. So because of that, I went and I made a newbie mistake. I started with the UI. I said, I know what the app, what I want it to look like. And somebody had turned me on to this thing called V0 by Vercel, where you could just type into an LLM and you say, I want an app that looks like this. And it generates it for you, and you think, I'm done, you know? And that's what I did. I said, wow, I did it. There it is. All the buttons are in the right places. And I put it on my EC2 box, and of course I clicked and nothing happened. It's like, shit, that's just a UI. And I was too dumb to know what to do with that JavaScript that Vercel designed for me. So I kind of had to start over. And so I started trying to design it. I really had no idea what to do. So I turned actually to the LLMs. I turned to ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, look, you know, and you can see actually the progression of the questions that these are very early questions that I asked ChatGPT. And the first one was, is there some way that we can make a slideshow from a bunch of images? Because that's one of the things that was the concept. It's like, you know, the customer provides you with a few images and you stitch them together into a video. And I was so stuck on the LLM thing that it didn't really click for me that this is a really basic task. Stitching images together into a video is something that FFmpeg has been doing for 20 years. But I asked ChatGPT and it answered me, and I was like, okay, what about for doing voiceovers? Suzanne had actually mentioned 11 Labs to me, but I didn't know what that was. So I asked ChatGPT. Eventually, you can kind of see here that the ideas kind of started to crystallize in my head. And I'm asking a broader question. And I said, look, I want to build a prototype of an application generically that receives input from the user, does stuff to it, and then sends the output back to the user for some feedback. And so it actually helped me get going. It helped me slow down and structure my thinking. And it said, oh, it sounds like you want to build, something with a front end and with a back end. I'm like, yeah, front end, back end. Those are words I've heard before, And so it kind of like rigged up these really basic, this is a basic Flask back end with a single route. And here's a basic JavaScript that has a form, and then you submit it, and it submits to this. And so I looked at this code, and I was like, I know what this does. I understand this code. I know how to do this. So I started actually building off of this. That was the very beginning. And then I started thinking about, okay, what am I really trying to do? And the whole time I'm conversing with ChatGPT, and it's helping me. And so I basically summed up the task of like, this is what we're going to be doing. We need to do a few basic things. We need to collect information from users. We need to look at this information to understand what it is, because it's going to be all sorts of different information, text-based, image-based, all that stuff. We need to clean it up. We need to process it. And then we need to generate stuff. And then we need to glue it all together and then show it to the user. That's basically at a high level what we wanted to do. And when you're starting out, like me, you think this is one step, that you just ask the AI to do it, the AI does it, and it gives you the outcome. But that's just not how it works. So as I'm working through this, I'm trying to decide, what is the AI supposed to do, and what is the AI not supposed to do, and how does this all look? And I ended up with something that kind of looks like this. So I got my free tier AWS account, and I got a little T2 micro, which thankfully I'm very comfortable in the Linux environment. So this was the easy part, setting this up. I brought up Nginx, and then I started, writing code to talk to OpenAI and to talk to 11 Labs, and it just gradually started putting it together. Eventually, what happened is I started, writing. I thought the hardest part was going to be the video part. So I started writing some code to take a bunch of images, process them, stitch them together into a video, and animate it. And very quickly, I ran out of memory on my EC2 box. So then I was like, well, I don't want to pay, But then, ChatGPT said, well, you could run the part that takes a lot of memory, you can run it in Lambda. I'm like, what's Lambda? So it taught me about Lambda, and I was able to, offload some of the compute tasks to the serverless environment. And then so I just keep the low memory stuff here, and then I just do something over here, and it comes back, and it was working great. So I was learning a lot about.
So,
yeah.
So the decision to use AWS, was that decision made by you or ChatGPT made that recommendation?
ChatGPT did not make that recommendation. My wallet made that recommendation. I have a server that my business's website is hosted on, but it's not enough to do this kind of thing. And I knew that I could get some free compute from Amazon for a year. So.
And you mentioned serverless. So what role does AWS play in the future?
So AWS is hosting a VM for me here. This is what they call an EC2, Elastic Compute. And it's also, this is the serverless, there's a few serverless AWS services here. S3 is for storage. So, and I'm using this storage to basically transfer files between this and this. And Lambda is a service where you spin up some compute. You have up to, I think, you have lots of RAM. As long as it takes less than 30 seconds to run your code, you pay by the amount of RAM that you use and so on and so forth. So, and this video rendering job just takes about 45 seconds to run. So, no, it's like 15 seconds or something like that. It fits inside the window. An API gateway is another service that AWS has where it's basically will launch the Lambda function for you, and it has a REST endpoint so that I can communicate from my server to this gateway. This gateway passes the data over to Lambda and then takes the results and passes it back. So I had to learn all these little bits and pieces, but I was interested in learning about AWS, and so yeah, I was more familiar with AWS than the others. So that's kind of like how it looks as far as how it's wired together. So what's the AI actually doing? How did it ultimately end up? Well, maybe not obvious, and I haven't talked very much about what the app's flow is, but you're going to see it. I'm going to give you a demo. But the first thing it does is it receives images and it analyzes them. I send the images that I receive to an AI, and I ask it to describe each of the images that it has, that I've gotten, because I want to be able to know what's in each image, because the video is going to be a sequence of images that are displayed one after the other. And I need to understand what's on the screen later when I write the script for what's going to be said during the video. So, if there's an image of a bear followed by an image of a cat, and then the video is about going to the zoo, I would like the narration to say, "Come to the zoo. We have bears and we have cats." I don't want it to talk about cats while the bear's on the screen and talk about bears while the cat's on the screen. So providing descriptions to the images was really important. I also thought, why don't you tell me things like, if the user is providing me a logo, and the logo is transparent, I need to figure out what kind of background to put in behind this transparent image when I make the video. So that felt like an LLM-ish task. Tell me what background would look good, rather than doing some sort of math on the image. And so I asked it to do stuff like that. Tell me what if I'm going to be padding this image, give me a background color that would go well with whatever's in this image, things like that. So knowing then what the images look like, what they represent, knowing a little bit of information about how I can dress them up to make them look good inside of a certain aspect ratio, then I say to the LLM, I say, all right, the user told me that they want the video to be about this. Here's the images that are going to be on the screen. It's a 30-second video. The images are going to be on the screen. This image is going to be on the screen for 5 seconds. This image is going to be on the screen for 5 seconds, and so on and so forth. This is the topic of the video. Write me a script that fits inside 30 seconds. There's going to be a voice that's going to read this. It's going to be speaking at roughly this rate. And so make it fit. And so it comes back with a script, written script. So now I have a lot of data. I have descriptions of images, and I have a written script. And I have from the user an emotional tone that they would like the video to have. Do I want this to be a happy video? Do I want this to be a sad video? So on and so forth. But I also tell the LLM, take the tone into consideration, but take the subject into consideration. A quick example for why that matters. You can say, for example, I want a powerful and explosive, no, I want an intense tone, right? But I'm making a video about going skiing, and I want it to be intense, right? Or I'm making a video about a motorcycle rally, and I want it to be intense. That's a different kind of intense. One is sporty intense, and one is like, rough and swearing and kicking things, and it's a different type of intensity. So I want the model to have enough freedom to kind of like follow the instructions, but not be too constrained by it. So the next thing it does is it helps me choose a voice, because we're using 11 labs. And 11 labs gives you a lot of metadata about each voice, but what we also did is we measured the voices. We wanted to see how fast they spoke, so that we could figure out, based on the voice, how many words we would be able to speak. And what the voices were good for. Some of the voices sound like newscasters, some of the voices sound like little kids, whatever. So we spent a lot of time adding descriptions. Exactly what Arka was saying earlier. Descriptions are really, really useful for LLMs, more so than you might think. Because I can take all of the metadata that I have about all the voices, and I can ask an LLM and say, look, this is what my video is about, and here's the voices I have. Pick 3 good voices for this video, and then I'll choose one at random from those 3. And that's what we do. And we just choose, we just have it rank, and then give us 3, and then we pick one at random from the 3.
Do you feed those voices from 11 labs to, for example,
we take the metadata that we have about each of the voices, and we send it to OpenAI to have it look through that metadata and match the voice to the use case. After that, once the voice has been picked, I have a voice ID. Then I go to 11 Labs and I say, hey, 11 Labs, here's a script. Have this voice read it for me.
And metadata, that includes information that kind of represents the voice itself. Like the metadata shows if it is a female voice or a male, or if it is like aggressive or kind or fast.
Exactly.
It does have those information.
Yes. Some of it 11 Labs provides, but a lot of it, Suzanne and I spent a lot of time just going through and just typing our thoughts.
So you make that.
Yeah. And so what I would do actually is we would make that metadata, and then we ended up like with long descriptions, and then I would go back to an LLM and I'd say, can you make these descriptions a bit more concise? And it would just kind of like make them more concise.
I wonder if new generations of AI can even do that, because when it comes to images, like you can just upload the picture and DALL-E does an excellent job describing that picture.
Yeah.
So if it can do the same thing on a voice,
it probably could.
Yeah, it makes your job easier.
Yeah, you could say like, here's a sample of the voice, put a meta description for it, and then use it going forward. Yeah, that's a good idea. So it generates the narration. It communicates the tone to 11 Labs as well, saying this is what the script is, and it's supposed to be a happy-go-lucky, and then so it makes a difference to how the voice comes out. We used to use Suno for music generation as well, so we would generate a score that went with everything else, because we had a lot of information. So I would ask OpenAI, say, okay, tell me everything you know, and based on everything you know about this video, generate a prompt for Suno. So it would generate a prompt saying, oh, give me a techno, electronic, upbeat, mid-tempo, song that's good for this and this. And then Suno would generate a song, and then I would just include that song in there. But Suno doesn't have an API, so we use these third-party wrapper type of things, and I eventually got suspended for doing that. They didn't like it. So I lost my Suno account. So what we did is we just took 50 or so songs that have been generated while we tested, and we put them in a directory, and that's just our music library now. And so we put a file that describes each one of those songs, and we ask the LLM, pick the right song from this menu, pick from this menu, and then stick it in the video. So that's kind of what it does. This is iChart. I don't expect you guys to read it, but if somebody wants the slides later, you'll be able to see. This is the prompt for generating the narration. And this one is the prompt for analyzing the images. I know people like to see, how do people do prompts. I spent a lot of time trying to get the prompt to do exactly what I wanted it to do. I'm not a prompt engineering black belt, but this does the job. So what is the AI not doing? This was almost a bigger thing to learn than how to use the LLM. I had to learn, maybe the hard way, what the AI is not good for. And sometimes I had to smack myself in the forehead and say, why was I trying to get the LLM? This is like killing a fly with a sledgehammer, you know? Manipulating images, resizing, cropping, and adding backgrounds. This is ridiculously easy to do in Python. Why am I trying to get, I was wrestling with the AI to get them to do a consistent job. You know, I used to have a prompt that says, I want you to take this image, make it fit in this aspect ratio. I want you to make it bigger, but not too big so it doesn't get pixelized, but not too small so that it's not too much of a border, and blah, 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 blah. It was and I kept getting really crappy results, and go ahead and try to make a video when none of your images are the same size. That doesn't work, right? So I ended up saying, screw this, I did this in Python. It's super fast and it works really reliably. Same thing with manipulating audio files. You know, maybe good at generating audio, but to change it, to modify it, to make it a certain length, to have the volume fade at the last 2 seconds, doing things like that, so much easier to just do in Python. And the same with creating the video stuff. The video stuff that I thought was going to be the most difficult is just FFmpeg. It's a simple little command. It runs in Lambda. It's nothing to do with AI. And then, of course, all the orchestration, all of the, you know, this is what we have to do, and then we have to do this, and then what if it goes wrong, and then all of that stuff is just straight out Python code.
When you say you're doing these things using Python, are you just using Python as a wrapper for FFmpeg?
Yes, in the case of FFmpeg, I just make a system call for it. I use Python to build the arguments list and all that stuff because when you're putting the video together, there's a lot of transitions that we do between images, and they have to be carefully timed so that, you know, they all happen at the. So I do all of that kind of like in Python, and then I end up with a command that I just run. This another eye chart, but if you guys are interested, this is what it actually looks like, and you can see like the structure of the code. There's this generate video function that calls a bunch of other functions, and you can see that I break out. You know, this is like Amazon calls. Here's an OpenAI call. This one goes to Amazon again. This one goes to OpenAI, 11 Labs, and all this stuff is there. And that's just kind of like the whole process just kind of runs like that. This took, by the way, 6 weeks to build. So not too bad, not too bad. So I'll show you what it looks like. Hopefully I haven't hyped it up too much. And hopefully it works. So we call it the Sunfire Video app. And it just looks like this. It's a our UI is pretty ghetto, but it does the job. I pre-populated it with some stuff. I just took information about this meetup. I put, you know, Brain as the company name. The description, I just copy-pasted right from the meetup page, right? It's going to be the 3 talks and so on and so forth. I took some photos and I put them in here. This is just a drag and drop type of thing. I just put the photos in here. I put them in the order that I want, all right? This is like an opening, and it's going to be Arca, it's going to be me, it's going to be Sam, and a closing thing. For some fine tuning, I wanted, even though there's nothing about that in here, I wanted to kind of like emphasize, hey man, this event is actually for all skill levels. It's not just for, you know, just to make myself feel better. It's not just for geniuses, it's for people like me too. And then things to avoid. I thought, you know, it's gonna have enough trouble with my name and Arca's name. I didn't want it to mangle our last names. So I said, don't say the last names, just say the first names. And my name in particular is really bad, so I just had it say Rashad instead of Rashid, because there's no way I can't get computers to say my name properly. So it's Rashid. All right, so the mood, you know, we could pick anything. I often just let it choose for me. This is let the LLM figure out what the tone should be based on the content. And then we can choose from a variety of form factors, and I'll just click generate. And then you'll see as it's doing its thing, which hopefully it will do. Yep, so it's got the data is sending this stuff back over SSE. And you can see the description of the first image, you can see the description of the second image, and so on and so forth. It's telling you everything that it's doing as it's doing it.
And the LLM is OpenAI. What
Yeah.
is it?
LLM is mostly OpenAI. I would say this is 80% OpenAI, and then there's some 11 labs in there. So the generating of the audio is done by 11 labs. See, it shows a song here. It's called Just Changes Everything. And now it's generating the video. So right now, the job is over in Amazon Lambda. Amazon Lambda is just putting everything together. All the different pieces have been generated. As soon as it's done, it's going to come back and it's going to pop up on the screen here. And hopefully it's good. If it's not, I have a backup that is good. I can show you that. You know. One of the benefits is that actually when you run this, and I've made obviously many videos, is you can do it over and over again. You don't like it, you try again. You don't like it, you
But
try
it will
again.
be different, right? Is it always the same one? If you give the same input, you always get the same one back? No.
No, you get something different every time. So it's pretty cool. We're actually going to be building another one. Let's see if I can actually.
For an engaging AI event co-hosted by Brain and Hacker Dojo. Discover powerful tools for large language models with Arca. Watch Rashad unveil the magic behind creating AI-powered apps like the Sunfire video app. Explore SVM classification and model accuracies through practical examples with Sam. Suitable for AI enthusiasts of all stripes and skill levels. Don't miss this chance to deepen your AI knowledge on Friday, September 19th, 2024, at Hacker Dojo in Mountain View. Tumaalt.
There's a little audio artifact at the end there, so that would be a reject.
And
But-
the date.
Also the date, yeah.
September 20th.
Oh, that's my bad, because I made that slide.
Well, it was, everything was.
Yeah, I guess I typed the wrong date.
Wait, I have a question. How does it know who is in the pictures?
It deduced it. It deduced it, and it always gets it right. So in the description of the event, the speakers are in this order: Arca, myself, and then Sam. And then I just put pictures of 3 people, and it just assumes that the first one is Arca, the second one is me, and the last one is Sam. And over again, it actually gets the timing pretty well, and it says, you know, it's fascinating how cool and smart it is about this kind of thing. So, you know, this is what I was able to build, you know, with my skill level being what it is in 6 weeks. And so the thing I wanted most to share, right, is it's not so much that what I did, it was hard, it was complicated, there's a lot of code there. If I showed you the code, there's quite a bit of code, and this definitely pushed me. But the fact that I was able to do it in 6 weeks, it means that anybody can do it. Anybody with a modicum of programming skills and enough determination can do something like that. And I think that makes me very hopeful for the kinds of things that we can expect to see. I think about the fact that the real game changer is not just that I got this little app that does, something I think is arguably quite cool. Anybody can make a 30-second video, post it on YouTube, post it on LinkedIn with almost no effort. That in and of itself I think is pretty cool. But what's even cooler is that LLMs can help this kind of thing happen. And with more people and more skill, it can help bigger things happen. And I think what you've got is the shadow use case for LLMs is acceleration of innovation all over the place. Yeah, okay.
So I've actually talked about the audio artifacts issue with Suzanne, and I'm curious, what is the root cause of that? Like, is it coming from 11 labs, or and have you tried debugging it or like setting some guardrails up to like remove those kind of, like, is there some best practices?
So what, as far as I can tell, and I've been on the 11 Labs forums as well, it seems to be based on how busy their servers are. Okay, there's some tweaking that you can do about like the settings that you use, the model and the various settings. But even if you get those dialed in, if their servers are busy, they get more artifacts. If their servers aren't busy, you get less artifacts. One thing that 11 Labs has done recently, which I think is fantastic, is they're going to allow up to 2 regenerations for the same content, which means that, so basically they won't charge you for regenerating the same thing another 2 times. But of course, ideally what you want then at that point is you want to ask for something to be read, and then you take that, you translate it to text, compare it to the original text. If it's not the same, say, no, try again, because you introduced an artifact, right? But at this point, we would have to pay somebody to convert the voice back to text. Yeah.
Could you reverse transcript it and then figure out that there was noise at the end and then
Yeah.
use that as a, hey, we need to click this one to split, like a second off it or something?
Yeah, that's the idea, is I think reverse
That's taking into
transcript.
account the fact that they're giving you bad data or bad results.
Yeah, so you use like a Poly, Amazon Poly or something like that to just like write out everything that it said. And then you have your script that you started with, and you compare that to what you ended up with, and if there's any differences, something went wrong in the audio. But it's adding a cycle and it's adding money. So that's the thing.
Yeah, you just have to compensate for, bad
Yeah.
quality.
So we can also add, like, OpenAI is working on this thing called Sora, and once that becomes available, we can also actually put like videos or animation in my pictures.
Yeah, no, that's obviously like, we're working on next gen, and one of the things we want to do is add some actual video rather than an animated slideshow. Yeah, this was just like a prototype to try to get, and actually there's people using it. There's some people using it, just.
How, like, you have posted it on the website, like how do
We
you-
have a limited public data, so I've given access to a few people, and if people are interested in trying it, just let me know and I'll give you access. Just don't go nuts, because it's coming out of, I don't make any money, and actually Suzanne pays for the 11 Labs, I pay for the OpenAI, So,
So you're not using a free 11 Labs tier?
no, we do too much.
So their page is giving you glitchy data.
Yeah,
sometimes, okay.
Yeah, no, we're definitely paying, we're paying a pro, and,
I must say, I think what you did is really impressive, and
thank you.
I think it's awesome. And one of the things I think is really neat is the way that you think about LLMs in terms of being subroutines. You think I'm a programmer, and there are various tasks that I do as part of my application,
Yeah.
and an LLM is a good solution for solving those.
Yeah.
And I have to say that most people I talk to have this very narrow view, that they're going to do a chatbot of some sort, and and LLMs are, that's kind of all they're dealing with, and that mindset, that broad mindset, that no, it's a tool that you can use for these service routines that would have been very hard to write
Yes.
with classical programming, and now it's a whole new set of capabilities on the back end.
Yeah.
That's a broad mindset that not many people have. I really like that. So
I appreciate that, Lonnie. I have to say that some of my discussions with you are partially responsible for that mindset, because it's kind of like, it was interesting to kind of have that epiphany of what is it that these are good for. And really they're good for whatever a person would be good for, generally speaking, rather than what a computer would classically be good for. You go to a computer because you have parameters, you need to parse them, you need to combine them, you need to manipulate them. And you go to a person for things like opinions and feelings, but what if you have a workflow that has this really fuzzy step in it? That's the good one for the LLM. When I say, for example, in the UI, when we try to specify the emotional tone, well, we give them a list of a few tones, but those don't match up exactly with the things that I have in my music database. But the LLM can work with that and say, oh, you said intense and powerful, but I guess explosive, that's close enough to intense and powerful. I'll include that in my considerations. Whereas if I was doing it the classical way, I would have to make sure that my parameters that the user is selecting from have some sort of a lookup table that matches to some fixed set of parameters. Not having to do that and just saying, no, look through this and pick what looks right. And I don't care if you get it different every time, as long as you get it generally well. That's really awesome that you can include that in your programmatic loop at this point. I think that's so empowering. Key takeaway for me is that I felt like I had superpowers working with ChatGPT on this. Yes, I knew how to do Python. Yes, I have several years of experience writing code, but never something like this. This is outside of my wheelhouse, and I felt like I could take anything and do anything with this. And of course, I had to learn how to work with the errors and with the hallucinations and with the wild goose chases that you sometimes end up with. But you really start to get good at recognizing when that's happening, and you start getting good at guardrailing things. It's just a skill that you develop. And I'm really happy that I have this skill now. You know, and I think that everybody in this world needs to develop that skill. It's going to be a very big competitive advantage. And I think I always talk about GPS, right? And my parents don't like to use the GPS. And they say, well, if you use GPS, you'll never learn where the grocery store is. You'll never remember where the school is. And you'll get lost easily. I'm like, yes, you're right. But I took my GPS to Bangkok, and I rented a car, and I could drive around Bangkok as if I lived there. You know, so I'll trade the occasional, oh crap, I don't remember how to get to 7-Eleven without my GPS, for being able to be driving like a native taxi driver everywhere I go. That's a superpower. And I think that the LLMs are giving you that same kind of thing. Will you lose certain skills because maybe I had to remember the syntax for this or that particular, programmatic kind of like algorithm? Yeah, I'll lose that. And as a matter of fact, I'm doing work right now in Databricks that I've never done before. I'm doing really amazing things in Databricks. Do I know Databricks? I can't really say that I've learned Databricks, right? It's helping me get through the Databricks maze and do an amazing project that my client is praising me for. And I haven't really learned Databricks, but I've used Databricks to do something cool. And the people that they have on staff that know Databricks haven't been able to achieve what I've achieved because I'm using a tool that augments me. So I think that's really powerful and really great. So that's my time. If you want more information, I've got the website here. There's a GitHub repository. This is open source. You can download it and play with it yourself. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love to get to know everybody and hear what you guys are working on as well. So thank you.
What a great presentation. Thank you very much. Really wonderful. So for our next event, make sure you make a video as